Welcome to my podcast, You Are More. I'm your host, Amy, and happy summer. It's August, and we're winding down these wonderful, long, sunny, hot days, and wrapping up all the times doing those end of summer activities before school kicks in. I know my family, we've been doing a lot. My kids wrapped up golf and baseball and softball, and now we're kind of off taking little day trips and kind of just trying to, enjoy the last days before we lock into our routine of the fall. I always get so excited about like that September. September is like one of my favorite months because it gets everyone back into kind of routine. It gets everyone kind of back on point. And while summer is amazing, it always feels good to get your routine, stay in place with it, and just to keep moving forward. So we have been talking over the last few weeks on just different principles that I have used to build the business and the life that I have. And people ask me all the time, like, how did you do this? You're in a smaller town, but you seem to create some opportunities across the country to be involved with a lot of different things. And this is what I would tell you, is that I've used the power of my words to create. And if you look at any self-help book, if you look at the Bible, which I always think is like the ultimate, it reads you, right? And it guides you and it leads you and it directs you. But if you look at any of those things, you're always going to find this, that words have power. You're going to find that it sets the energy, it sets the tone, it sets the pace, it does everything. But there's going to be something else. When you keep speaking something, it's going to cause you to go down a path. It's going to cause your feet to take action. It's going to, when you can't keep speaking every day, you're fit, firm, and fabulous, and then just sit there and want the donuts and the pizza and the fried food. Your body won't, because your mind has set itself on a different path. I'm fit, firm, and fabulous. And so because of that, I'm not being drawn to McDonald's or to Pizza Hut or the Pizza Ranch or the 5-cheese pizza at the OP. Like, I'm not being drawn to those things because it doesn't line up with where I'm speaking. And where I'm speaking is where I'm headed. So that's just a quick refresher. But I want to talk to you about, there's some underlying tones here that I have had to really cultivate. And I feel like for most people that have pursued, they've got great businesses or they're successful in what they do, there's a common denominator between all of them. And this is what it is they get the idea, like they get the intuition, they get the direction, they get the thought on the inside of them, like, do this, call this person, do whatever. And they don't just sit around and think about it. They take the action step and they do it. My absolute best business ideas have come to me spontaneously when I wasn't like in a think session. It came to me, I ran with it, and the results were always so much better than a thought out, discuss with everybody, weigh it out, see what our options are. There's something to that spontaneous leading. And so when you give place to that in your life, when you cultivate, I call it like cultivating, like just that inner voice of the spirit in my life. Other people call it intuition. When you cultivate that voice, it gets stronger and stronger. So one of my key principles to building the company that I've built and building the business that I've built is that when people come across my mind, when I think about them, I reach out to them. And you're like, well, that's okay. No, when someone crosses your mind, they're crossing your mind for a reason. Start to pick up on those cues. When people cross your mind, take the next step. Call them. I cannot tell you how many times people have been on my mind. I'll call them and they'll say, Amy, I was just getting ready to call you. I've just been thinking about it. Hey, our situation has changed. Oh, hey, we're going to need to do this. And I didn't call them for a real estate transaction. I didn't call them to sell them a house. I didn't call them to list their house. They came to my mind. And when they came to my mind, I followed through with the phone call because I so believe if they're floating across my mind, there's a reason that they're floating across my mind and I must make contact. Guys, that is a principle that I've talked to my team about so much. When people cross your mind, don't just let them cross your mind. Reach out. And I will say that to you on many fronts. Reach out to them. You don't know that they're not in a really bad spot and you're being led to call them. Reach out, but you got to trust that inner voice. And the more you give place to that inner voice, I'm telling you guys, your life will start to unfold. Oh, I got to make that contact. Oh, call this person today. Oh, create this program. When you trust that gut feel and you roll with it, it only gets stronger and stronger. And I'm telling you, God ideas are the best ideas. God's way is still the best way. And so he drops those things into your spirit. He drops them into your mind. And if you take the prompting and you roll with it, your life unfolds. It continues to create greatness and opportunity and more influence, and it expands and it increases because you serve an ever increasing God, right? I always say this. I say this to myself all the time. God's way is still the best way. It's still the best way. No matter what we try to wrap it up into, no matter what, he leads us and guides us and directs us. And when we give heed to that voice and we let it increase the more and the more and the more in us, the more it increases. I'll never forget this. And I'm going to share this with you because it's kind of dramatic, but this is kind of how I've been taught. I had a client that she had just bought a condo and she was just getting ready to, she was just moving into it. And I had just bought a new car. And I was so excited about this car. I've been waiting for it for weeks. And they called me and said, Amy, the car is ready. Come pick it up. And I said, awesome. But I just kept having this feeling that I was supposed to go make contact with my client. And so I was like, oh, I'll just go over there after I get the car. I'll drive over there after I get it. So I'm driving out to the car dealership, and the entire time I'm thinking, no, I just need to go stop at my client's house. I just need to. So I called the dealership. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be a little bit late. I just need to go do something first. And I'm so grateful that I listened to that inner voice, because when I got there, I knocked on the door. She didn't answer, but I saw her laying on the kitchen floor. And when I got in there, she was going into like a diabetic coma or diabetic shock or whatever that is. But she was like talking really funny and laying on the floor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there was nothing in the house. I started peeling through the kitchen cabinets and the refrigerator, and there's nothing in there. I go knock on the neighbor's door. I'm like, I just need some sugar. I need sugar bad. I need something. And I don't know what would have happened if I wouldn't have listened to that inner voice. That inner voice has saved me so much, right? I'll never forget this. I mean, not just a few years ago, that inner voice, I'm like, oh, I feel this. I feel this kind of like, oh, I need to make this phone call. But a person that's so dear to me in my life, she was walking through COVID, and all of a sudden I'm like, I had just talked to her the day before. Everything was good. Her oxygen levels were good. Everything was great. And all of a sudden I'm driving my kids to school, and I can't shake the feeling that I need to call her. And so, typically in the mornings when I'm talking to my kids on the way to school, that's my time to talk to my kids. And I'm like, I've got to call her right now. So I called her. I said, Anna, wake up. I need you to take your oxygen level, your pulse ox or whatever. And she goes, oh, okay. And she was kind of groggy. Like, guys, it was in the low 80s. I called her husband. I'm like, you need to get her to the hospital right away. And she ended up spending a few days in the hospital. But I think to myself, what if I would not have listened to that prompting? She was so groggy and sleepy. Like, what if I wouldn't have listened to it? Guys, I've had times, I'd love to say that I've always listened to it and it's always worked out so beautifully. But I've had times I haven't listened to that small voice, and it has cost me. It's cost me in this. I'll never forget it. I'm in sales, and I met somebody. I met a developer, and when I met him, I thought, I don't know. I don't feel really good about this. But boy, he built some pretty cool houses. But it seems a little sketchy. I don't really feel good about it. So I go back to my office. I'm like, guys, I told him I'd give him a price, but I'm not going to list them because I just have this thing on the inside, like, don't get involved. Well, guess what? Like any salesperson is prone to potentially do, I fell in the trap of, when I went back to meet with them, I looked at those houses again and I'm like, I can totally sell these. These are great. He's not that great, but his houses are great. And so I jumped into it. Guys, it ended up costing me 18 months of awful. I ended up in a lawsuit. It was a horrible experience. But guess what it taught me? Trust my gut. Trust my gut. And now, I mean, after I walk through that experience, I'm like, if I ever get that feeling, I'm not getting involved with someone like that. And so I give so much credit to what do I feel like on the inside, to the point that I had an opportunity that was a really high-end listing, and they were like, Amy, we really want you to be our realtor. We really want you to list our property. And I was like, yeah. I had that same feeling. And I'm like, And so I just called and I said, hey, I think you want someone who's going to be more excited, I just don't think that I'm the right person for you. And they're like, what? Because I just had that feeling. Well, fast forward 6 or 8 months later when that property closed, I ran into somebody and they're like, Amy, this whole thing became like a big lawsuit. I didn't have any indicator other than my gut feel. And I'm like, ding, 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 ding. This feels like the last time. Ding, 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 ding. Guys, when you pay attention to that inner voice, it gets louder and louder and louder. And when you get that feeling and you're in a circumstance and you just want to, like, you see people and they're trying to present something different to you, but your inside is screaming, listen to your inside. Listen to your gut. Be led by that inner spirit. Be led by it because you can trust it. And as you trust it, it will build you. It will lead you. It will guide you. But I've seen that when I get that anymore, I don't really care if someone looks so great. I don't care what they're offering. They can be saying all the right things. It can be so enticing. If my spirit's saying, no way, man, run, I'm saying, no way, man, I can't do it. I'm out. I have passed on so many things because I've had that inner voice screaming like, don't get involved. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I've suffered the consequences of when I haven't listened to it. And I'm just telling you, as someone who wants to build a life, if you have a big dream, it's going to require you to have so much courage, but it's really going to require that you trust yourself. You trust the God in you. You trust that you are equipped and that you walk in such a wisdom because you listen to that inner spirit and that inner voice. The more you give place to that, the more you see life unfolds in the greater and the greater and the greater. But it requires courage because oftentimes when I've had that voice speaking to me, like, oh, do this. Oh, hey, pay attention. Or, I mean, guys, we're spirit people. So we walk into atmospheres and we can sense something, right? Like when you have that, you have to pay attention to it and you have to be comfortable because you're going to have times where you're going to walk alone. You kind of have to, I'm not going to just say this, I'm going to retract that. You don't kind of have to. You're going to have to get used to walking alone. If you're pursuing a dream that God has given you, it's going to require supernatural provision. If it is something that you can accomplish on your own, if it's something you're like, yeah, I think we can make this happen, it is not a God dream. A God dream on your life is way bigger. A God vision for your life is way bigger than you can humanly accomplish. If you don't require his super on your natural, if you don't require him to get involved with your dream, then it's not big enough. And he's probably not really the author of it. Like he's a big God with big dreams and big things for you. Not like just play it safe and play it small. That's just not who he is. And it's not how he operates. So when you get involved with God and you start to you're like, Amy, I just don't know about a dream. I don't know. This is what I would tell you. This is what I'd say to you. When you get involved with it, like the God dream, right? Read the word. Ask God, what is your vision for my life? What do you have for me? Ask him because he will show you. And his vision will be somewhat, you've probably seen glimpses of it, but you'll start to see it unfold for you. You'll say, oh yeah. You'll start to think bigger. You'll start to think different. You'll start to imagine things differently. And if you can see it, you can have it. If you can see it in your head, you can have it. If you can see it, you can walk on it. So all part of this God vision, this God life, and this unfolding, whether it's to start a business, whether it's to, for a family, for a spouse, for a church, for an organization, or for the world, whatever it is you're called to walk with, you will be tested, you'll be tried on it. So you're going to have the confidence to trust the inner man. You're going to have to be so confident in that inner man. So when I say you're going to have to walk alone, I'm not saying you're not going to have friends. I'm not going to say you're not having cheerleaders, but that dream, that vision will buffet you. And so you have to be so confident in it that it is straight from the throne of God that I am going, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm moving, because things will come to shake you and knock you off guard. But trust the leading, trust that inner guide, trust it. I promise you, it will not fail you. It won't take you off course, but it will keep you. So I always tell the Lord that, man, you're my senior partner in business. You're my CEO. You're my CFO. You're my everything. And when you give me an instruction, most of the time it's not going to make sense to the human being. Most of the time it's going to be not at the best time. Most of the time it's going to be an awkward time. When God gives you an instruction, most of the time it's uncomfortable. It's not the right time. It's awkward. It's not what you want to do. There's nothing about it that makes sense to. It's not wisdom, maybe, that would appear to be quote, quote, wisdom. But when he gives you those instructions, if you can just trust it, lean into it, and do it, everything unfolds. So trust that inner voice. Trust your gut. I say to my agents all the time, what's your gut feel? I don't really care what, like if I have got a great listing team and they'll go out and they'll look at houses and they'll come back and they'll go, Amy, let's review comps. And I'm like, okay, first question, what's your gut feel? That's what I really want to know. I'm always very curious. What's your gut feel? Because I trust their gut feel over the comps. I'm like, yeah, the comps could be saying one thing, but what's your gut say? Your gut, what's that gut feel? If you ask my team how many times I say, what's your gut feel? I say it to them all the time. I want them to lean in and trust. Trust what they feel on the inside. Trust it. They're experts at what they do. They're well trained. They're well skilled. But there are times you just have to lead with that gut feel. And so today, I want to say that to you. You are on this earth for more. You know that. You're listening to that podcast. You know that. But I want you to just think, how do I need to listen to that voice in a different way? Maybe I've been stuffing it down. Maybe that voice has been trying to tell me to do stuff, and I've just been like, nah, shove it to the corner. Oh, my opinion doesn't matter. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, self-doubt. Oh, this. Oh, that. Oh, I can't make that phone call even though it's been coming to my mind every day for the last week. Oh, I can't make that phone call to that person. I can't talk to that person. I know I feel like I'm supposed to ask them out for lunch, but I'm just so nervous. What if they don't like me? Oh, I know I'm supposed to ask them to be on my podcast, but what if they say no? Guys, there's just so much of that. But if you'll just trust your gut, step out. It takes like 5 seconds of radical courage just to make the phone call, to make the ask, to take the next step. But when you get that feeling, if you just do it, I promise you, it's going to start to unfold a plan and a plan and a plan. And just know this, as thou goest step by step by step, he will open the door before you. That's what the word says. As thou goest step by step by step, I'll open the way before you. We don't have to go punch the door down. We don't have to go kick it down. Although we do have to take action, right? Listen to that small, still voice. Get quiet and listen to it. And then take the next step. Take the next step. Take the next step. Guys, if this podcast has been encouraging to you, if it's inspired you, if you think there's a friend, anyone you know that would love to listen to it or that could be helped from it, I would love the opportunity for you to share it. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you want me to talk about. As this is for you. So I appreciate you listening. I appreciate your feedback, and I appreciate your support. Know this, you truly are more. Be blessed.